worried that you might be the cool kid? You wear the latest fashions on top of all the trends. Or have you ever worried you were too much in the mainstream? Always so generic, more normal than your friends. Well, we've devised a test to put to rest your fears. There's no need to panic if you lend us your ears. Tonight you can't sleep easy after all that you've heard. Cause if you like the show, then you're probably a nerd. Oh, Canon, it's Canon, it's all. Tyler, Phil, and Boris. Oh, Canon, it's Canon, it's all in Canon.
It's Monday. You know what that means. It's time for a new episode of the It's Canon Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things geek, the podcast where we talk about all things pop culture, the podcast where we talk about anything and everything, because as the title of the name of the show says, it's all in canon. We're your hosts. I'm Boris, and I am joined this week by Phil.
I don't know about you guys, but that was thrash, man.
And Tyler.
Yeah, I mean, Boris came in at double time energy from the top, but I'm just like, I hope we're going to be able to keep up.
Yep, well, considering how I was like a couple minutes ago. Anyways, on this week's episode, we're going to be talking about the huge Microsoft Activision deal. We're going to be talking a little bit of Netflix. And then we're going to be jumping into a few shows that we've been watching, like some Star Wars on Disney+, like some DC on HBO Max and Crave here in Canada. We're just going to have some fun discussions, but before all of that, as you know, we love to waste time. If there's any podcast that knows how to waste your time, or anyone's time, your time, my time, everyone's time, it's this show. Phil, how's your week going?
Not as fast as that intro. My goodness. I'm like, holy cow, we're going to be over. The show's going to be done in 15.
Yeah, Boris is speed running this.
Yeah, I know.
I feel like absolutely trash right now. So that's part of the issue.
For sure.
Yeah, fair enough. No, I'm doing well. You know, been watching the shows that we talked about that we're going to talk about. Playing the video games. And, you know, trying to avoid all the pandemic disease, you know, filth, germ out there.
Yep.
So, really laying low. Tyler, how are you doing?
I am in crunch time, and occasionally I stick my head up to look at the larger world of social media, and I am becoming increasingly like, that's it. Humanity's done. We have people freaking out the M&Ms are not sexy enough now.
Mm-hmm.
We have people rage quitting the concept of academia. It is bananas out there.
Oh, never mind the can of rage that got opened up about some of the episodes of Boba Fett that we're going to talk about today too.
I was leaving that for coming up.
Yep. Fair enough. I'm so looking forward to trying to deeply analyze Star Wars fans as they take a total crap over this now.
Yeah. Star Wars fans right now are being Star Wars fans for sure. It's honestly, it's so funny, like everything that I deal with, like in terms of this geek culture, pop culture show that we have. And then on the flip side, I have the wrestling show, right? Exact same reactions. People freak out over the stuff that just like doesn't matter. Like, for example, today, last night, there was a huge independent show, you know, not WWE, not AEW, not any of the big companies. It was a smaller promotion that's been getting a lot of traction the past few years, called Game Changer Wrestling, GCW. They sold out the Hammerstein Ballroom, the Manhattan Center in Manhattan, in New York City. And this place holds about 2,500, 3,000 people. And it's a historic building for promotions such as ECW, and even WWE has ran shows there. Ring of Honor used to run shows there. Anyways, independent wrestling is not everyone's cup of tea, right? Number one, it's a very different style than what you're typically used to on TV. It's, it can be a little more on the comedic side, but it also can be more on the violent side. GCW is known for their death matches. Now, they didn't have any death matches because New York has a very strict athletic commission that enforces even wrestling. So, no death matches on the card, but even what was on the card may have been a little too much for some people, right? There were a lot of botches. It wasn't a great show. And, because it's independent, like, the wrestlers have a lot more say in what happens in their own matches outside of timing and whatnot, right? So, I guess short story long, it just wasn't everyone's cup of tea. Huge fights were happening today. And it's like, guys, it's Monday. Leave me alone. I don't care right now. I'm sure everyone has much more important things to do than to discuss the finer points of professional wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, it is gross how weird everyone's gotten over like every goddamn topic now. Social media is just designed to make us all hate everything.
Yeah. And this pandemic makes it so much worse because I think we all sit at home and watch our stuff, and we all kind of think we know more about it than maybe the showrunners. Or our opinion somehow has influence over it. It's the kind of the danger of what we talked about with the Snyder Cut, right?
Yeah.
When fans actually wield a perceived or implied power over a project, it gets into dodgy territory when they start rewarding themselves and then putting themselves on other franchises or other properties. And the boardrooms, unfortunately, listen to that. And that's the worst part. So you get what we're going to talk about with Netflix going on. You get all this stuff is linked, man.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that was a very conspiracist sentence of everything's linked, man. But I mean, I'm about to come on here being like, there was a study that came out that was basically like TikTok is just designed to radicalize you and make you hate yourself. It's like, oh no.
Oh, my conspiracy is just that Boris knows how some of these topics are linked. And he knows that we're going to bring it up. So for anybody who doesn't think that we use some kind of show planning, I will tip my hat, if I had one on, to the Kingpin Boris here.
You know what? It's actually kind of funny because, like, people that I've talked to, people who have sent me Facebook messages or whatever, right? Because we don't get emails. We get people send direct messages and stuff, or add a comment on the website.
We don't check the emails. Maybe we do.
Shh. Notice that I used that specific term on purpose here. Anyways,
bunch of pickle gummies.
Honestly, whatever. I even forgot where. I remember where I was going with this. And here I'm trying to like actually stay on topic, and we're already
Facebook messages.
Yeah, I know exactly where I was going, but I'm just wasting your time, since you guys decided to make me. Anyways, I'm sorry. So people send me messages, and people always ask like how much planning we do, because like I think deep down inside people know that there's a lot more planning on this show just because of some of the segues that we have, right? So
yeah.
That's literally my entire point with that entire.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of planning in this show is what I think like a lot of shows of like, it's probably more than you think most of the time, but every once in a while, yeah, we either put in a ton more planning and it doesn't pay off, or we put in what we all think isn't quite enough and everything's fine. And I think that's making any creative endeavor. I think that's just work. That's just doing anything.
Yeah,
honestly,
but it's just like,
I think the
to
majority...
me it's just so weird, right? Like it's just like I'm trying so hard this year to see what's like to find a format that works for us, right? Yep. And it's just this hodgepodge of and like mixed signals. It's like being in a horrible relationship. Like you just don't know what that other person wants.
Well, I mean, wait. Is the horrible relationship with Phil and you need to leave us? Because I don't want you to feel like you have to do anything you don't want to do. Or is it with the audience? In which
with the
case,
audience.
yeah, welcome to
It's
being
with
a
the audience.
creative. I don't know what the hell my audience wants about anything I do. And they're how I make all of my money.
Right. Yeah.
I just find that the majority of time that I invest is all in content.
Yeah.
Because I never know which angle you guys are going to throw at me. Like, I never know. I have an idea of Tyler's take. I have an idea of Boris having tolerance. So Boris can shift no matter how he wants to. He's already probably pre-thought
Did you
it through.
just like shit on Tyler there?
No, I just know that Tyler, I'm starting to learn Tyler's kind of...
I think Phil is saying, I'm intellectually consistent.
Yeah, that's actually no. He's shitting on me.
Yeah.
No, Boris.
I
He's
buttered
not
you
shitting on
up
me.
to shit on
He's
you.
shitting on you. He's like, Boris will, he'll change his mind at the goddamn drop of a hat.
I won't change my mind. I'll entertain your ideas, but that's as far as I'm gonna go. Whereas Tyler's like,
Trying
no,
to say Boris
you're
thinks about both
stupid,
sides.
and I'll tell you why.
Yeah. Boris can go any direction he wants because he's already pre-thought out the stuff. He looks at it and he's always had that ability with sports, with anything, where he just has a good beat analysis. And then I'm like, it's not hard to figure out for Tyler. Like you say, it's intellectual or it's going to be benefiting the industry and the creative aspect of it, which is fine. Like, that's where my heart is too. So I don't mind that we support video game, unions or anything like that. I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. Is it though? Is it though?
Is supporting unions good? Is that what the question was?
Yes.
Video game unions.
Yeah. Like you know what, Boris? We don't work 7 days a week, 15-hour days. Unions are good.
Yeah.
Are
Oh,
unions
trust me.
perfect? No. Do unions
Oh,
have
yeah.
flaws? Yeah.
Oh, trust
100%.
me. I wanted you to say that just because it's like people who people forget. Well, not that any of us were alive then, but the whole 5-day work week came because of unions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like worker safety laws are written in blood. And part of that's because unions made it so we had to care.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
crazy world
but-
we live in. It's a crazy, crazy world we live in. And then seeing just I see people and the general public and like us included, right? And it's in terms of, certain mandates that happen because of COVID. It's like you do realize that if you go against this, you are literally just opening the doors for us to just get back in shitscape number 20 at this point.
Oh, yeah. You're in Ontario and it's starting to get to y'all.
Oh, you have no fucking idea.
I mean,
Yeah.
we don't even look at
Yeah.
the numbers anymore.
Okay, I wish the audience could see. I look beat up right now. The bag's under my eyes. I have a gum infection right now, so just saying any word hurts. I feel like absolute crap right now. Just been a tough couple days. And, my entire side hustle involves me talking for hours on end.
Man, I bought an exercise bike.
But was it a Peloton?
What's that? No, it was not. I
Yeah.
did not want the Peloton. I did not want the price tag.
Was
I
it a
wanted
Nordic track?
No, I wanted the Amazon. The Amazonian Express. Two nice gentlemen delivered it this morning, and I was there at the door when they pulled up in their rent-a-van, and I'm like, can you just bring this in, guys? Sure. And they walked it right into my house, and I'm like, that looks heavy. So yes, the $350 Amazon special is now in my possession, but it needs to be built.
Yeah, it's funny.
Well, I get you.
It's
I-
the
Did you guys
idea
see
of,
that Peloton took another PR hit with Billions?
oh gosh. After the Sex and the City debacle.
Yeah.
It's almost like none of this is real. Nothing exists anymore.
Like, what world are we in where a company's stock is legitimately being affected because of make-believe characters' issues on make-believe shows in make-believe worlds?
I know. But that being said, Peloton and Netflix stock both took massive hits because the pandemic honeymoon thing is over. People are more optimistic about the pandemic ending. Netflix missed some numbers for viewership, things like that. So their stocks are starting to deflate based off of that. But this stuff with the TV is just ridiculous, Mike.
Well, I mean, the market as a whole is undergoing a pretty substantial correction. If anyone looks at their TFSA or their American equivalent this month, don't pull out right now unless you have
financial advice. But yes, don't.
Yeah, like the market's just taking a hit. Like the S&P's down like 10%.
Yep. Don't worry, Tyler. Fuck it, forget it. I was gonna make a pull-out joke, but I'm not even gonna go there. I'm not gonna stoop to that level right now. No, but it's true, and it's like, well, look at Bitcoin.
Great example.
You know,
yeah,
Bitcoin has taken an ass kicking, and I wonder how stupid the president of El Salvador feels right now for just putting all his eggs in that basket.
So I watched a wonderful documentary about cryptocurrency and NFTs and something by Folding Ideas. It's up on YouTube for free. And, you know, I am a no-coiner who's been doing reporting on the cryptocurrency space and doing policy work on it for like a decade now. And I've said it's like, you know, insane for ages. And he has the best thing I've ever seen on it for explaining it quickly. It is like an hour and a half, 2 hours. But it's great because he kind of points out, like, hey, if tech bros and your cryptocurrency loving friends, if everything they say is true, here's why that's bad. And also they're probably lying or have been lied to, and here's what's actually happening and why it's worse.
Look, we've kind of talked about this, hinted at this on our chat. I haven't really talked about this on the show, but the more I find out about cryptocurrency, the more I find out about, you know, that entire NFT world and seeing the details of it and, you know, quote unquote, following the money, it's just a place to launder your money.
Well, it's also a way to steal money from other people, right?
Well,
like it's also a Ponzi scheme.
Let's
not underestimate the fact that a lot of people make money off of it.
Yeah,
and it's a Ponzi scheme.
I was reading somewhere. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, part of the reason every single one of your friends wants you in NFTs or wants you in Bitcoin or whatever is because the more people who try to buy in, the better.
Yeah. Yeah. I was reading somewhere, and to that point, and I'm so glad that I stopped myself from cutting you off, and that is, I was reading somewhere, and I wish I could cite this, because it was just like, you know, it was an article that I just so happened to read. I didn't even save it because I read it on the spot and I didn't think that, hey, this could be useful for the show. And they were essentially saying, like, a small percentage of people are the ones who are, like, making the billions and billions of dollars in the crypto world. So it's those people who are obviously benefiting the most. And I'm like, you know, that's when I'm like, well, this is the ultimate pyramid scheme right now.
But yeah, it is, right? Like, part of it's that, and part of it is, like, every other goddamn bubble, right? Like think about who's, like, there are people who are going to make it out of this with tons of money. And the greatest example is the Winklevoss twins.
Oh, yeah.
Because, sure, they have bought a lot of cryptocurrency, but also they run a series of companies that make money every time you trade cryptocurrency.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
So what they can do is they can take a bunch of your money. They can take all that money they bought cryptocurrency with, which maybe they didn't actually buy it because there's a whole bunch of stuff regarding, like, you don't have to buy cryptocurrency to say you have it.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't buy anything. And then when it goes kaput, they'll write it off as a capital loss for a company. And that'll be tax benefits for them for the next 30 years.
Yeah. What's interesting, though, about all of this is because it's so deregulated, it literally is the Wild West, and people can do some pretty fucking illegal stuff with it. Which, I'm not a fan of regulation. I'm really not. I'm not a fan of red tape. I'm not a fan of all super bureaucracy. But it goes to show you that there need to be some eyes somewhere on this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you're both into the tech world, and I get it. Like, a lot of red tape and regulations regarding tech, even I'm going to admit, it's written by people who don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's always been one of the problems with cutting edge industries is the government is 15, 20 years behind.
Yep.
And that's 100% a problem. And I'm, my attitude towards regulations is actually the same as my attitude towards unions and my attitude towards democracy as a whole. Like, it's crap, but it's better than everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, no,
you can get me to get on side with a lot of a lot of regulations are dumb. That's what I was going to say. I'm like, I can get me, yeah.
Oh, there.
Yeah, we could all rant about that. We don't like the regulations for sure, but yeah, some things just need them.
I feel like, and I'm thinking of like some of my friends who are like crazy. And like sometimes I feel like some of this stuff is a necessary evil. And all I can hear in my head is, as I say that out loud, is, you're a sheep. It's like, you know what? At the end of the day, I'm at the point now where I just don't give enough of a shit about so much that I just go about my life, do what I gotta do, and eventually, I'm gonna croak and say la vie. And I know that's like a horrible way to look at it. Like the extreme pessimist way to look at it. But it's what keeps me going, baby.
Yeah, I'm in the field next to you, eating the grass with the other ones.
I mean, honestly, if your entire political ideology, your entire critique of calling someone else a sheep, you're a moron.
Yeah.
Right? It's that wonderful idea of American exceptionalism and the American, from the beginning, being like, I'm going to go out west and I'm going to conquer and make civilization. And from the beginning, people were being like, you're a fucking moron. Your knife is from Germany. Your pants are from England. You're drinking coffee from El Salvador. It's always been a lie.
Yeah. But hey, greatest marketing people ever, the United States of America.
Yep. Well, yes.
Just
I was going to make a religion joke.
Oh, no. We don't need that group. Come on.
They're all mad at us.
They're going to be like, they talked about communism. They boffed on NFTs. They besieged Elon Musk's cult of crypto, and then they went after religion. Do they have nothing?
So, for our goals for the new year, are we trying to make this cleaner, or are we fine staying explicit?
Oh, fuck it. Let's go. Let's fucking go.
So like, look, like, yeah, they're
deep.
gonna stop chowing down on Elon Musk's filthy asshole for a moment and be like, hey. How dare they beseech Papa?
Oh, Lord.
Well,
oh, my God. This is where
Dogecoin
we are already.
coming out his butt.
No, he's not feeding the family. He has forgotten how many kids he has.
True enough, that guy's setting up franchises. Anyhow, that's why the sheeple comment always bugged me in The Matrix 4. All right, now Boris is on side with that. Neil Patrick Harris should not have said that. Lazy.
There was a lot of lazy there going on.
Yeah.
I actually have become, and I'm not saying this is not a full hard debate. I have softened towards my view towards the fourth Matrix movie.
Okay, I have to rewatch it still.
Fair.
I just have to want to rewatch it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying I've softened on it. I think it was very much an attitude of like, oh, we have to make a shitty movie to prevent a shittier movie being made. And I'm like, yeah, well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we had regulations creating sunset clauses on creative rights, this wouldn't happen.
I love when we go full circle with this bullshit.
It's like, oh, I see it. What are we talking about today?
Okay, there we go. It's funny. I literally tapped on every single tab except the one I needed. Fuck.
Oh, okay.
One of those days. That's why I've been very quiet for like the past 2 minutes. I'm like, no, that's not it. 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 And here we are. That was it. All right, so I think we're going to kick off the show starting to talk because we were talking and it got voted 2 of 3 worst platforms, and that's Netflix. Netflix has had a pretty tough week. They've really had a pretty tough year, right? Like, at the end of the day, one of the biggest obstacles, and we've talked about this many times with Netflix, is that when they were the only players, everyone would go to them and literally, like, probably for pennies, sign off their shows. And Netflix was making millions and millions and millions of dollars. And then people realized, why are we giving this other company our content when we can have our own Netflix? And here we are, 2022, 1,001 different streaming services. It's just an absolute shit show. So from just a pure content point of view, Netflix is hurting. They are losing plenty of plenty of shows, a lot of content to other streaming services. So much so that Netflix is actually eyeing a 750,000 person per quarter drop of subscribers in the UK. That's a significant number. So, on top of all that, as Netflix now is losing shows, they have to actually, get content on their platform. Hence the Netflix originals. So, this is adding just an insane amount of overhead costs. And they're, overall, I would have to say that the Netflix originals, when you look at some of the actors that they get, I'm sure that some of these actors aren't cheap, like The Rock, and
Ryan
people
Reynolds.
like that. Ryan Reynolds, even Gal Gadot, right? I'm pretty sure her price tag isn't cheap in the grand scheme of things, right? So the overhead costs on creating original content is going up. So what does Netflix have to do? They have to charge more for their service. But over the past 6 years, we have seen 5 price increases on various subscription plans on Netflix. This is just creating a huge issue because a lot of people are probably feeling like they're not getting their bang for their buck. So let's take a look at this last quarter of 2021. It was projected that Netflix would get 8.5 million in new subscribers. They actually only added 8.3 million subscribers.
Not terribly off the mark.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm impressed that it's
Hold on. But Phil, just remember, we're talking about a public company missing their target.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked about this with BlackBerry.
Oh, yes, they will.
I've talked about this with other tech companies. Like, BlackBerry got their ass kicked because they didn't make as much of a profit as analysts thought, even though they made a profit. So their stock went to shit. This is one of the things that's happening to Netflix right now. They're looking at a huge decrease. And a lot of people are now saying that, okay, this is now, as Phil mentioned earlier, it's kind of now getting even Steven with the huge increase that they got at the beginning of the pandemic. So, there's a lot of different opinions happening about Netflix and the Netflix numbers, but at the end of the day, subscriber numbers are still going up. They're just going slower. Costs are going up. And some would say that the quality of the content isn't as good. So, Tyler, how does all of this make you feel?
So, I mean, I'm gonna defend Netflix a little bit. Just
oh my
mostly
God!
For the interesting
Hold on.
State of
let me mark this down. January 24th, 2022. Tyler defends Netflix. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, look, it is 100% over the last 5 days. It's down 25.56%, which is a rough position to be in. Disney's down 10.
Yep.
Roku's down 6. Like, I mean, there is a larger market correction going on. So part of that is in there, right? Like, tech as a whole is getting the shit kicked out of it. I think Tesla's down, 12% this week.
Something like that.
You know, yeah, like a lot of stuff's getting hit. Their financial numbers are overall in a better position than BlackBerry was before the implosion. They still have a 36 PDE ratio. It still makes money. It's like you said, like they're still making money. It's just not making as much money.
Yeah.
But
here's the thing that gets to me, Tyler, and sorry for cutting you off. What gets to me so much is that the analysts and the reporters, the authors of these articles take a position that's like they're not good because they're not making us more millions. Like Netflix has 222 million subscribers. 222 million subscribers.
And they still haven't turned a profit, right?
That's incorrect.
Oh, okay, great. Good.
I mean, so part of it is 100% that they are in creative making industries, which you know, at times can lead to weird cash flow situations, which has always been Netflix's bigger problem is cash flow.
Okay.
Right? Because if you're Disney, or this is a bad example. Disney's too big. Bad example. If you're a smaller film company and you get like 4 huge movies in a year, your best bet is actually to pour all that into getting bank loans to make more movies.
Yeah.
And that'll make your financials look wonky. And that is what Netflix keeps doing, to their credit, right? Like, every time Netflix gets money, they just pour it into making new shows and new content.
They reinvest it, which is a smart thing to do. In the end of the day, it'll pay off. But if we're looking at quarter-to-quarter results, without them actually going out of their way and announcing this, people start freaking out.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta remember, though, like, profits are above Wall Street estimates. The Refinitiv estimates were like, I mean, this was an interesting bit. Refinitiv was within 3% on every single estimate, I think. Refinitiv is one of the people who did like a projection of like, this is what we think Netflix is going to do. Revenue was 7.7 billion. It's not bad. Operating margin keeps shrinking. And regarding cash flow, Netflix says by Q1 2022, they're going to be fine. Yep. Which is like, that is a very aggressive thing to say. And it's cash flow, not overall like how their financials doing.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny because like one of the things that hurt Netflix and their stock was, get this. And this is what I mean about like the way that all of this stuff is reported. Netflix essentially said, look, we only plan to add 2.5 million subscribers in Q1 22. And that made people freak the fuck out. When you look at what they made last year or what they announced last year, they were looking at 4 million last year. But they knew that they were still riding the pandemic wave.
Yeah. 100%. The other aspects you gotta look at is that is also with Netflix cutting a bunch of their marketing spend. So like their operating costs are way down. And again, the last kind of like interesting bit is I was trying to figure out who it was, so I'm accurate on my quote. But some Wall Street people are actually saying it's still crazy undervalued. I'm just trying to verify. Yeah, Morgan Stanley analyst Benjamin Swinburne says he thinks the target should be 675. Like he thinks that's how much Netflix is worth.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is crazy.
Which is, I mean, hard to say, right? Now we're getting into share prices, and share prices are always crazy because what is a share value, right? Like, you know, I remember doing corporate finance, and once upon a time, it was supposed to be vaguely related to the annual amount of money a company makes in terms of like, let's say on a good year, it makes $1 million and declares dividend X. You, in theory, should be like, oh, well, over however many years, that dividend should equal the stock price. In theory. And now it's just they are decoupled from reality entirely.
Yeah.
As much as everybody can put in their pockets. Yeah. Well, like from a customer standpoint, I'm just going to say it, like, number one, I'm getting tired of the price increases. I think we all are. And the variety that's out there, the fragmentation of the market. This one is now becoming pretty top of my list on if I'm going to cut a service, I'm probably going to cut Netflix. And then next, part of that is based out of the fact that I am frustrated by their continual, axing of shows. You can't trust anything on Netflix until, if you want to really get invested in it, it seems like you got to wait until a month after the show comes on to be like, are they making more or is it done? Because I want to know the context in which I'm going to go back and watch that show. Like they're starting to poison the well a little bit on that front.
I think you're 100% right. I think that is one of the advantages that Disney and Warner Brothers especially bring to their own table is they are more capable of riding that uncertainty, right? Like Disney is more capable and has basically demonstrated how willing they are to play the long game. And I think that we're kind of seeing long game unless something big changes. This is Amazon versus Disney versus Apple. Long game.
Yeah. Yeah, because
100%.
Honestly, like, even just in the current marketplace, Book of Boba Fett, I don't think is fetching the numbers that make Disney happy. Neither did Hawkeye, right? But you don't see them going around going, oh, we're going to axe all these things. If they axe a show, it's because of an issue with an actor or an issue, you know what I mean? Like usually there's a bigger issue about the Gina Carano stuff or whatever, where they just go, okay, that Ranger show, that's going to go away. We got to retool that.
Yeah. The over-under isn't worth it. And it was far enough out.
Yeah, exactly. So you see them making those educated guesses, but my gosh, they put in so much money on like Solo and things like that. They've shown that they're willing to completely blow a project up while it's shooting and be like, yeah, it's just going to be money. It's just money.
Yep. The other side that I think Disney's having some fun with is they are two things. Of number one, because they're building this ecosystem, they are 100% planning and counting on in however many years when they do Young Avengers or whatever, people are going to come back and watch Hawkeye. Like they're going to get some of those people in 2 years. And they're also looking at what their demographics like right? Like, because you're right. Hawkeye is one of the worst performing, I think it's the worst performing Disney Plus Marvel show so far.
Yeah, I've heard that.
But it had a lot more women than normal watching it.
Yeah.
Compared to the other shows.
Yeah, looking at those demographics, right? Like that's a whole other story there, right? So, Disney tends to look at the big picture. Let me pose a question to you guys that I was thinking about as we were talking. There's certain signs and moves that a company does as it prepares itself for a possible sale. At least, to put itself out there, right? To go on Tinder and see who's going to swipe right. Taking a look at the way that Netflix acts. Go ahead.
So I was going to make a joke of like, look, they're not looking. They're just seeing what's out there.
Exactly. That's the thing. That's exactly where I'm going with this. So, seeing the way that Netflix acts, seeing that they keep their portfolio of shows as lean as possible, seeing that they make these, these strategical investments back into themselves. Do you foresee that Netflix is, I don't even want to say preparing itself, but kind of, making itself nice and pretty for a possible suitor?
I mean, it did have that thing where it fooled around Disney for a few years. They've got history.
Mm-hmm. Apple's always been rumored to be interested.
Apple is rumored to buy
just their
everyone,
subscriber
including
base.
this show. You know, like
Yeah. No, I think there's definitely a possibility of something there, Boris. I mean, they're probably moving heavy into video games, and I don't
that's
fully understand why.
well. Let's take a
Which
look
isn't
at
to
this
say
from a
it's a
tech
mistake,
company
but-
point of view.
Sure.
We've talked about this in the past, but let's take a look at this from a tech point of view. Investors, public companies are always have their back to the wall because they constantly have to innovate. You know, them keeping this business model and this business plan isn't good enough for investors. They have to constantly have innovation, keep the ball rolling, find new means of bringing in cash. And Netflix has thought, gamification, let's get some games up in this bitch. So we've now seen the launch of Netflix games. We've seen some interesting stuff even here. Like, we're even getting these in Canada, which is like crazy to even think about. But we're seeing more Netflix games. They're really getting into gamification. They looked, and we're going to be talking about this, at that Activision Microsoft deal as a very sweet thing, you know? And they've openly said last week at a business call that they're open to strategic partnerships in the video game realm. So, you know, they have to constantly innovate. They have to constantly change. So that's kind of why they've jumped into this world. But again, I see this as a prettying up the portfolio for a possible something. And now that they're in games, they've opened themselves up to a whole new possibility and possible suitors like a Microsoft, like a Sony, like a Google.
I mean, it also, again, back to my half joke, half serious, it also looks really good because Disney has a long time looked at doing more gaming development in-house, but like creating a gaming studio is no small task.
Not fun.
Yeah, especially because of the weird economics of making video games, right?
Yeah. But, well, here's the thing that the Netflix model is interesting in its attempt to me, but in its execution from what I've seen. Now, I might be corrected, but from what I've seen, most of it is go on X Play Store or X Apple Store, download X app, play it. Like, there's no real Netflix games here. There's more so like sign in with your Netflix account and play the game. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not Stadia on Netflix. It's not Game Pass in the cloud or X Cloud or whatever they call it.
Yet.
Right? It's not that yet.
Yet.
So it'll be interesting to see if it takes that form. That becomes a really interesting space. And I think Stadia, again, are just in the background whitelisting their services now openly. Like, they're facilitating stuff with AT&T and Activision.
Strategic partnerships. You know, this is the key word that I saw that they talked about, and that's because, like you said, step one, let's get games out there. Step number two, how can we launch said games in our own platform? And that's where I think this is going to get very interesting with partners like a Microsoft, like a Google, like a Sony even.
You know, no, it's definitely, I guess, what we all know and acknowledge, but we all sit at our consoles and rigs and go, oh man, I just want to go to the Steam store and buy that game, or I just want to go and collect that. But you know what? Like you guys know, I've dabbled in this cloud gaming stuff, and it's the real deal. And it's a big joke with the cloud gaming people that we know it's the future. Like, everyone's seen it. It's coming and it works. But
I don't know if that necessarily
it
means
is
it's the future,
contingent
though.
on it is contingent upon what Tyler always brings up, that internet can be shitty.
Well,
So
and
it reduces your market, which has got to affect Netflix.
I think actually the other side of it is what we talked about a little bit before, of number one, people like to own things.
Yeah.
And the other side is let's look at the long tail for a second of how do you keep putting out major AAA releases and make money?
Yeah.
Because the logic is such that, is it everyone has to get one? That's the only way, and you start putting games behind that? Because you're like, already you have the console war insanity that still happens. The side I've been thinking about more and more is what's the long-term economics? Because if you're going games as a service, you have every goddamn incentive to nickel and dime and turn every game into Fortnite.
Yes.
Exactly.
I just don't know how you keep good games on there long term and have it be profitable.
But here's the thing. That's exactly. Let's expand that thought. Having a Fortnite, because that raises up your MRR, your monthly recurring revenue. Now, if we take a look at singular AAA titles with the production costs, with the development costs, with I'm sure QA costs are going to start coming up for these studios.
100%.
Is there a ceiling where a Microsoft, a Sony Studios, a studio, it doesn't have to be those big companies, and just the studios themselves, where they say, fuck, this is too expensive. We can't keep doing this. Do you think the video game industry is getting to a point where it's too expensive just to release a fucking game?
No. So my reason is video games have this one phenomenon that you see it in books, you see it in video games, you see it in comics sometimes, you don't really see it in movies anymore. Every once in a while you get a movie out there, but not very often like this. And it's this phenomenon of you could have a very, very small team working on nothing, make one of the biggest things in the industry.
Yeah.
Right? And it keeps happening in video games. And you can have it in, again, like novels and comics. It happens less in movies, and like the last few big ones for movies usually have quite a bit of money or some other thing going for them. But like Stardew Valley was a guy, and he never has to work again if he doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Based upon the numbers that have been reported, Minecraft was 2 guys originally.
Yeah. I love that example.
You'll always have, but because we already have Steam, and because we already have Unity and all these other tools, those people have no incentive to go direct to behind a streaming service because they'd have to get paid out. Or they can go risk themselves on Steam, which, yeah, you're right, they might make nothing, but also they might make nothing being behind the paywall.
Exactly.
So you end up in a position where, like, neither side has any incentive to make that work. And then you have the AAA games, which in instances where they are not in-house, your CD Projekt Red, your Paradox, your EA Games still.
Bungie.
Yeah. Is Bungie not part of Microsoft?
No, they left. They went to Activision. Then they separated from Activision.
Right. I always forget. The point being, those companies have no incentive to lock in behind a streaming service. Right? They're going to want to keep making AAA games because Boris is right. They cost a metric fuck ton of money to make, but they're like making a movie. Yeah, they cost so much to make, and you're not making money off of all of them. But the ones that make good money pay for the lights on for everything else.
They do, and those companies don't, though. Like look at this past week or two. Microsoft shut down all the Halo 3 and Halo 2 servers on the 360 side. Now you can still play it on Master
What's
Chief.
The downside of this?
No, there isn't, as it plays into your point.
Oh, okay.
Right?
I'm like, I don't understand what you're disagreeing.
I'm just like, they sold the crap out of it until they look at the player loads, then they unplug the servers and nobody complains, right? It's like they're quietly retiring all of these games that we bought full price. And they're like, yeah, it's just not paying out, man.
I mean, the difference with that being is multiplayer has always kind of had that threat, and there are and always have been ways around it. So if your concern is Like if your concern is the fact that you lose access to games, like 100%, but it is far better to a lot of people to be like, I can still play the Halo 3 campaign though.
Yeah, I can still play the Halo 3 campaign, or I can get the Master Chief Collection on Game Pass on my current Xbox platform and play it, right? Like, I know that there's great answers for it, which is why you don't see the outrage.
Yeah, and the other side being like they think about how long their lifetime was. And like no game you should expect a forever lifetime. The issue with games behind the streaming service, behind all this stuff, is you're going to end up with more and more anthems, right? And honestly, you're going to end up with more of Anthem, but less polished, right? You're going to end up with more and more games that just fall flat, are all MMOs, because that's part of the value to a gaming company, or more realistically towards the financial companies and the stockholders, is they want that. Is it MMR or MRR?
MRR.
Monthly recurring revenue.
Thank you, MRR. Right, and MMOs are what gets you that. And I'm using MMO very widely here. Like I'm including Clash of Clans.
Right, but there's a reason why even Riot Games is the worst kept secret in the industry, is that Riot Games is building an MMO. So much so that a lot of the E-teams are starting to buy MMO teams to go under their umbrella.
Yeah.
For this very reason that you're talking about. Like, there's billions of dollars just being left out there in the open market that everyone is trying to capitalize on. And as subscriptions become more of a vanity, and right now subscriptions are a vanity, but as they become more normal, everyday process, well, this is an easy way to do it, right? Without pissing people off. Because I think there's always something to be said about a AAA title. You know, I don't think, as much as we're going to be seeing more seasonal, ongoing development games, I still think that, we're gamers don't like change too much. So, AAA titles, one-off games are always going to be a major thing.
The other side is, and this is a little bit anecdotal. A friend of mine and me did some initial studies into it, but very broadly speaking, people who play games a lot are very good at being are better than average at being efficient with their allocation of resources. We saw this when I was running a board game cafe. I was serving as manager. Is gamers are, compared to other bar attendees, terrible tippers. And part of it is because they realize they don't need to spend as much money to get as good a service. And it's all about the optimization of resources. And broadly speaking, gamers, they'll spend their money on ego-driven whatever, but they're going to try to be efficient about it. If you reveal that, this is our latest seasonal development game, but, 50-50 chance it's like Phil with Netflix if it's not around next summer because it didn't get enough people, you're going to create a system where no one buys in.
Yep.
The market will correct.
Yeah.
The customer is king.
Exactly.
I mean, I think that to an extent, Boris is right, though. Of like people like AAA games, broadly speaking, and I think that you're just going to see the video gaming market as a whole kind of be into these big clumps that it already has been dividing into, right? Of like, what is it? 30 to 40% is MMOs.
Yep.
But like, ridiculous, people fucking love single player games.
Well, really the funniest thing is like, look at the game that I fell in love with, Forza Horizon 5 and that whole series by and large. But I'm just amazed the fact that it's basically just a one and done type of title. If you buy the expansion, then there's no additional charges in the game. I think you can buy a map for $3. It's something ridiculous like that. And I'm like, and that's on Game Pass. Like, they're just like giving it away. Just give us your $50 for the expansion. That's all we ask.
I forget how the saying goes, but essentially that's Microsoft saying, look, we'll take a bit of a hit, give it to you, quote unquote, for free, but you're going to get used to this monthly service.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the freemium model, right? And
Yeah.
I 100% think that you're gonna have. I think that Phil's right to an extent of like, yeah, streaming games are here to stay, but I don't think it's gonna become the dominant.
I don't know. It becomes interesting, especially with MMOs, because now you're talking about the idea that Microsoft, I know we've pretty much gone over to it, Microsoft buying Activision,
Yeah.
buying a Blizzard means that they've just inherited one of the, it's not the largest anymore, but it's a pretty dedicated fan base with World of Warcraft. Imagine if they just start streaming that bad boy over Game Pass.
I think that's bad for them.
That would be
I
bad
think
for them.
it's terrible for them, but I don't know that Microsoft know that.
I don't know. I would not assume they're idiots. Right? Like, their choice is either, like right now, those people all spend their WoW money. Your choice is either we give them more for the amount of money they've already had, or we try double dip, which is what Nintendo and a lot of other console companies did for ages, right? Of like, you got to pay for your online, and then you have to pay for this game's online as well sometimes.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably the inevitable thing, but I'm just saying the marketplace is no longer barriered by a computer. It's your console can provide you with the entire experience. You can consoleize World of Warcraft, whereas I can't even imagine doing that previously with all the keyboard shortcuts and everything like that. But you know that they can just sit there and they can just twist that thing or make another Diablo or do whatever to monetize and get in-game bucks and then just start doing the GTA 5 plan, right? Like, okay, you've got in-game currency, you can buy with real currency. We're giving them ideas. My God.
I mean, but that's
But it's pure money. It's pure money. And then they get you on the other side with your subscription, right? Like, let's say you have to buy Game Pass Ultimate Activision Blizzard, right? Like COD, every COD game. You do what everybody does. And they go, hey, that's an extra $15.99 a month. And you can do all the multiplayer mayhem, all the MMOing, all this for $30 a month. What a deal.
Look, we're already seeing streaming companies have tiers, right? You have your free tier, then you have your whatever tier, and then you have your premium tier, right? Why isn't Microsoft doing this right now?
Well, they'll 100% do it. They're just building up to this. People are used to it.
Exactly.
I don't think streaming's won already. Is my thing. Like,
no, 100%. You're right.
No.
Now,
I agree.
Looking at the numbers, like, it's crazy to think, and I know I'm comparing apples to oranges when you take a look at the size of these companies, but ZeniMax, that deal was worth $7 billion. The Activision Blizzard deal, $70 billion. We're looking at games like Overwatch, Diablo, Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, and Candy Crush. You can't fucking forget Candy Crush and how they monetize that.
But you're also looking at a rampant unionization problem, the fact that you have to lose most of your executive suite, the fact that it just had one of the biggest PR hits in video game history, an ongoing open federal investigation, an ongoing state-level investigation from the California state. Like, you're also buying a lot of liability there.
Now, Tyler,
but
I love
for
the
the
fact
low
that
price of $70 billion.
Now, I love the fact that Tyler brought that up, because let's put on our tinfoil hats, guys. Because I had an interesting conversation with a very good friend, my best friend actually, Mike, and we were talking about this deal, and he's like, and we kind of expanded on that. Is like, when you take a look at the games that Activision Blizzard would give to Microsoft, and the issues that Activision Blizzard is going to face, do you think that Microsoft just said, "Fuck it, we're gonna buy this company and clean the company up so that we can save face, and in the long term it's going to be fixed quicker than losing millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars until Activision Blizzard actually cleans itself up"?
Yep, 100%. I mean, from Microsoft's standpoint, this just makes sense of like, just buy it, core the thing, like just take out everything that you think you can get away with in terms of staff. You do a gamble of I think Microsoft gamble of like, look, we got rid of them. Maybe don't unionize now, I don't know how that works for them, but they're also looking at, like we were talking about before, I guarantee they're looking at, look how good the freaking Arcane TV show did. Look how good the Witcher TV show did. Activision Blizzard has some tasty IP that I would argue that, like, if you just bid, like, I just want the IP. I don't need anything else. That's worth more than $17 billion.
Yep.
70,
sorry.
Now, Sony's been very quiet. Do you think Sony is just saying fuck, or do you think they have something? Do you think they're planning something?
Did you read Sony's like official statement on it? It was basically like they're like, please don't take COD away. And Microsoft's response, we have no plans to, because you make us a lot of money. Like, they've already gone over the books. They know.
Yep.
Well, I mean,
but it's going to be, if you play COD on Game Pass, if you get your COD on Game Pass, you're going to get access to that map 3 months earlier. You know,
I don't know if that's going to happen. Like, I mean, it'd be skins or guns or whatever instead of a map, because otherwise you'd be segmenting your market in a way you don't want.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? It's going to be something that makes it exclusive, that makes it desirable.
You know who you know who I blame for all of this? Spider-Man.
You know who I blame for all this?
Who?
Bill Clinton.
Bill Clinton. Okay. Oh, fair. Got that one.
Yep. It's all back in the 90s. All this started in the 90s.
I'm going to blame it all on Disney.
Hey, whatever. Disney's going to own Sony
20th
soon,
century,
whatever.
Man.
But you know what?
Somebody wanted to beat them at the price tag.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just absolutely crazy. So, now that we've kind of clarified and we're all on the same stance that Microsoft is honestly just looking out for their own ass, that's why they kind of, I'm assuming, expedited this deal. Because clearly this deal didn't happen in just a few weeks. This deal must have been cooking up for a lot longer than we think.
Hey, like, my experience with a corporate takeout, and I have experienced them, is the lawyers come in like 3 months before the date.
100%.
And they're all setting up in the boardroom, and they're just like, bring in every single financial report that you have going back 7 years and plus, if it exists.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
They know where the revenue streams are. They know what the monetization paths are. They have all these answers months before. And all it is them sitting there watching each headline go. And Bobby Kotick tried to deny that he knew anything. And each lawsuit mount up and go, there's another 10 billion off.
Yep.
There's another 7 billion off.
100%.
We're getting at this number. And then they're just like, okay, we have to keep the shareholders happy. We have to, and then they go, okay, now once the deal goes through, your executive, your C-levels, gone. No doubt about it. It's going to be Phil and Microsoft running your show.
Yep.
And that's it.
The weird part about all this, especially, and I'm just trying to get specific numbers, but it's also worth remembering that, like, for neither Microsoft nor Sony, neither of their main business drivers are video games.
Yep. Exactly.
Right? Like, Sony's a $240 billion asset company. Microsoft's $300 billion asset, but it's like video games are just like one of their business units. And I think that they're both looking at it from a much bigger level than we are, right? I think Microsoft's looking at it of like, maybe we do a TV streaming service down the road. Maybe this is some IP to help launch with this. And I think Sony, quite understandably, is really like the video game stuff for them is a lot of their test bed and a lot of their like their part of their, what's the word I'm looking for? Their way of
research. Market research.
Yeah, research. Like, it's the research and development for, honestly, like, chips and stuff that go into their robotics and their like high-end electronics.
100%.
Not to mention, Sony already owns 2 streaming services.
Yep.
And they build cars. They build electric cars now.
Yes.
Can't buy them, but they build them.
You see, this it's funny that we bring this up because I remember back in the 90s, and we've talked about this many times, and that's having these companies that are non-video game companies, the non-Sega Genesis, the non-Nintendos, starting a video game company, because what the fuck do they know about video games, right? And now we're seeing that, well, this is now corporate America, this is how business is done. But what scares me still to this date, especially knowing how fast software companies and companies in general pull the fucking plug, is not that they would, but that if push comes to shove, they're fucking pulling the plug on that video game division. Because we know as a fact, Xbox is a big money drainer on Microsoft sometimes, some years, because of their R&D on specifically this.
I was going to say, I think Sony's video game division always makes money, though.
You're right. You are correct about that. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but you're correct.
It's interesting to me when you brought up about the IP as well and about the production values, because we've already know Microsoft's in production of a Halo show. And imagine that you have now Overwatch, Diablo, World of Warcraft, StarCraft. Like, you've got a lot of stuff that has lore around it, let alone Call of Duty and everything like that. But I'm just saying, Blizzard are exceptional at those vignettes, right? Like, those used to sell video games when they'd release the opening sequence, and it was just like, as a video gamer, you were like, oh my God, look at the graphics, look at this. And they were just so well produced. It was like, I could watch a show of this.
Yep.
Yeah.
We were throwing ourselves at that. And they were like, well, we're a game company. We got a game. We're going to put the package on the pig, but we need you to kiss it.
Yep.
Right. And now it's like Microsoft can completely go, yeah, you know what? And we want to stream it.
Well, you know what? Let me one up you, because in my notes, yes, guys, this week I do have notes. This is the last part that I wanted to discuss, and I want to throw this out your way. We talked about Netflix. We talked about Netflix gaming. I'm strategically talking about Microsoft. Netflix strategically talked about partnering up with a gaming company and partners. What if? And to me, the natural partnership is Netflix and Microsoft sharing IP going both ways, because we know that Netflix wants to get deeper in the gaming. Microsoft just bought a shit ton of IP, and guess what? Just like you guys were just talking about, they want to air it somewhere. Naturally, a partner like a Netflix would be great until they build their own, or they just buy Netflix.
Or they just buy them. Yeah.
Yeah, Netflix is not, if Netflix can convince Disney and Microsoft to hear them out a little bit, they're in a really nice negotiating position both ways.
Exactly.
I think you're in a really good position there. And the other part is worth noting is, like, as much as we talk about like how important video games are to us, if we talk about all streaming video games, all console video games, and all PC video games, that's barely half the industry of video games.
Exactly.
Man.
Exactly.
There's the other side of it. And we also see that Netflix has said part of what their video games are going to look like is kind of variations on that Black Mirror thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they were like, that's not as polished as we want.
Sorry, literally gamification of their own content. Real time.
TV.
Yeah, and the other side being like, once upon a time, the market would have been like, well, that's not a game. That's a visual novel or whatever. And now we're looking at like, oh, but some of the biggest games of the last couple of years would be doable in that format.
I look at a Cyberpunk and I'm like, interesting, Now, we take a look at video games. Video games bring in more money, cash, more mash, as I was about to say, than the movie industry.
Yep. I mean, I look at the announcement that what's his name? Cage? The guy who did Heavy Rain in Detroit, No Human, More Human, Come Human.
Yeah, the Two Human as well, whatever. Yeah,
Become Human.
I know the company. Yeah,
Quantic Games is making a Star Wars game.
Yeah, Star Wars. Yeah.
His games basically most of the time you could just play on a remote.
Yeah,
like you don't need a controller for those games. They're basically point and click adventures. And
I
you
would
could
like
do that
to-
on your TV. That could just be a game in Disney Plus.
I'm just going to say that I'm going to date myself, and we call those choose your own adventures.
Yes, exactly. I used to always try to get my character to die in those bad boys.
I still
Wait,
have some of the original D&D books around here.
Nice.
It is the step up though, right? Because it's not just choose your adventure. It's like it's still an old game, but it's the like point and clicks, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, like the old
Yeah.
Lucasfilm ones, right? Day of the Tentacle, Maniac Mansion,
Yes.
Jack McCracken and the Alien Mindbenders.
All
Yeah.
of it.
Like, those are making a big comeback right now, even on Game Pass. I've got a few on Stadia. They're doing like these 8 and 16-bit games that are quite literally point and click word, get your guy to do shit. It's great.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, guys, before we wrap this up, Phil, do you have any final thoughts on everything we've talked about? Netflix, Microsoft, Activision, the future of gaming and content?
I think personally, I can't predict what's going to happen because I think that I would look back on this recording and regret whatever I say. It's going to be a wild future. Whatever
You know what,
decisions.
Phil? No, don't regret. Own it, because I think about what Tyler and I and that Kyle guy talked about years ago,
No such
and a
person
lot of it
exists.
has become true.
I mean, I am currently editing a manuscript for a game that I wrote. Started writing in 2018, finished it during the COVID lockdowns last year. It's now in editing and pre-production, and I'm sitting here like, oh, everything came true!
There you
True
go.
enough. Well, I think this is going to change gaming. I think if you were excited about ZeniMax going over to Microsoft, I think that this is going to force a lot of change in the gaming industry. I think Sony are going to have to react to Game Pass 100%, and they're going to have to get it right. They're not going to be afforded the ability to make a mistake. I think the stakes are way higher on everybody at the gaming table.
Yeah, and I think that's it. I think that's why Sony's being very quiet, because they're being very strategic about anything they say, anything they do, because they know it has to be impactful or else they're fucked. Tyler, any final words?
I'm just saying, as much as we've been talking about it, Sony has a lot of IP, and Sony owns Funimation and Crunchyroll.
Exactly.
I'm just saying.
And Crackle.
And Crack, I always forget.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be a big game changer. Like, I just can't see it not.
Ah, you said game changer. All right, let's move on, guys. We've been watching 2 shows in particular that we wanted to talk about. We want to chat a little bit about Peacemaker, which can be watched on HBO Max and Crave. We also want to continue our discussion about the Book of Boba Fett. So, if you haven't watched either show, you might want to stop, go watch that shit, come back to this show, and continue the episode. And if you have watched it, well, good for you, and let's keep going. So, Phil, let's start with the Book of Boba Fett.
All right. Well, we had, I guess the episode we missed was the one about Mos Espa, episode 3, where we didn't talk about it. And basically the big controversy point, like, I'm not going to recap the episode because, like, these shows move slow. I will say that about Book of Boba Fett. It's differently paced. It's not bad. It's just not the show that competes directly with Mandalorian. It complements it.
If I may, it's very obvious that this started as a movie.
Yeah.
And they are all of a sudden like, we have how much time we have to fill?
Yeah, because this was supposed to be the Josh Trank movie, right?
I believe
So. Yeah. So this got protracted into episodes, and we're gonna feel the same thing probably with Obi-Wan, because that was a movie that they've cut up and shortened and keep on shortening. So it'll be interesting
I like to
to
call
see.
it Solo Part 2.
Solo Part 2. Yeah.
The soloing.
Is that Book of
Still
Boba
solo.
Solo for Bolo.
Solo hard, solo harder. Hardest?
Is that for Boba Fett here? Solo 2? Is that what you're calling it?
No, that's what I'm calling Obi-Wan.
Oh no, I think you're getting it right now.
What's
I think
that?
the
What's
lead
that
up-
name?
I think, you know what? I think we're seeing elements from Solo that we're going to see in both of these shows.
No
Oh,
people.
I think
Solo.
Black Chrysanthemum is going to be in Solo.
Yeah.
Because
Obi-Wan.
you guys, this is the big Chewbacca, the Wookiee, right? The thing is that he's got a scar over his eye, and it's in Book of Boba Fett. And the thing is that in the comic books, Obi-Wan gave it to him. And he had to
You
run in
also
with
know
him.
that friend of the show wrote all the Keith Capel wrote all of the Krishant stuff for the RPG,
Oh, amazing!
and apparently some of it allegedly, I don't know. He was getting excited that some stuff he had written about was in the show.
Good. That's excellent. Well, I know those knuckle dusters, things like that. The electrified ones. But anyhow, so in this episode, I think the big controversial point has been that there was colored Vespa-esque bikes ridden by modders. And here's the thing, right? Because we saw the next week's episode, which gave it a little more context. So that the modder relationship with Boba Fett isn't as abrupt because you just wait for the next week's show to drop. And that's kind of what I'm encouraging the Star Wars community that listens to us to continue to do. Wait for the next show before you get on the Twitters and march out your angry tweets about, oh my God, like the only thing that I can give that show that I didn't like was, yes, the speed of the bike change, the bike chase on the Vespas was lackluster. There was a little bit too much gimmick, not enough substance in it. Like those things have got some slowness going on big time. But, like there's colored bikes in Star Wars. Yeah, get used to it. Just like when you go down the street, there's rusty car, broken car, rusty car, nice Tesla, nice Mercedes.
Well, it's almost like certain subcultures like conspicuous consumption for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
My bigger thing is if you were freaking out saying that colored Vespas aren't Star Wars, I'm like, have you not seen Star Wars?
I know.
Have you not seen pod racing?
I just don't understand. And people are upset over the legit development of Boba Fett. Now every article seems to be saying that Boba Fett's show has killed Boba Fett. And I'm like, did you not watch the prequels? All right, like Boba Fett evolved past the 4-minute screen time and 3 lines that he said in the original trilogy. And they made him a full-fledged character that watched his dad die in front of him and picked up the helmet that used to house the head of his decapitated father.
But you know what the
And
issue
learned
right
to
there
hate
is,
the
Phil?
Jedi.
You know what the
What's
issue
that?
is? Sorry for cutting off. And that is,
No.
again, we've said this before and we'll say it again, and we see this a lot in Star Wars and the MCU. And that is, if it doesn't play out how you've thought about in your head, how you've dreamt about it for years upon years upon years, then fuck this shit. It is stupid. I can do better than these writers.
I actually think it's even simpler than that, and I think that part of the noise is driven by people who don't give a shit about it, who have their own fan bases who love them getting angry about shit, and this is just an easy low hanging fruit.
Like
Right?
the Angry Joe. Like Angry Joe on YouTube.
Yeah, it's like everyone who got angry at like the trailer for the third Ghostbusters movie and started freaking the fuck out in anger. And it was like, have you seen any of the Ghostbusters trailers? They're all garbage. They always have been.
Yeah. No, that's part of it for sure. I just, it's just amazing to me to see what's the flap this week. Like, why can't Star Wars grow? Why can't it change? And we're not even talking about the fact that they are changing it or growing it. We're talking about the fact that they're actually expanding on what they already started. Like, it's just hilarious. I'm laughing my butt off here, but yet we'll all go hog wild that Max Rebo survived, and he's still playing in Mos Espa. And you know what I mean? Like, we'll all sit there and nerdgasm out about Black Chrysanthemum being in the show. We'll all, that's a really deep cut to Dr. Aphra, blah, 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 Darth Vader comics. We'll all sit there and be all righteous about it. And then this week's controversy, he doesn't call it Slave One. And then they'll be sitting there and they'll go, oh, there was a scene in the kitchen that was slapstick and silly with robots. And I'm like, yeah, and those robots are from Clone Wars TV show. They're from the actual prequels, the Chef Droid is. These are all things that got screen time. These are all fully developed.
Are you saying that droids in Star Wars serve as comedic notes?
Yeah, and even have callbacks to like General Grievous.
How dare they? Are you saying that the effete golden man shuffling through the desert? Are you saying you laughed at that as a child?
I know, right? It's just mind-blowing that comedy exists in the world of stars.
Yeah.
That's my rant.
I'm really enjoying the show personally.
Yeah.
Me too. It's the highlight of my week, to be honest. But it's
up until
I look at Twitter.
Over.
I mean, this other show came out, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah, and that's fair.
Anyway, sorry,
but
continue.
You look on Twitter and you look at what's a controversy du jour. But there's actually, I'm hoping that where we left it this week is that we're done with the flashbacks. Hopefully, it doesn't matter though. I'm enjoying the flashbacks way more than I thought I would. And we've established that Boba Fett spent about 5 years with the Sand People or the Tuskens. And yeah, so we're getting compressed time frames, like even as slow as the show is at points or differently paced, it's actually expanding on a lot of time that's passing, and that's hard to measure. But we know that for a fact. And it turns out he knows the modders, hence him being so eager to hire them. But the guy, the water merchant, that's the stapler guy from Office Space.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I thought was hilarious because that's the deep cut Mike Judge movie. And Dave Filoni used to work for Mike Judge back in the day. His first job was animating or working on King of the Hill.
Yep. Exactly.
You'll only hear that here, folks.
And about 1,000 other podcasts.
Oh, really? Everybody's figured it out. Damn.
Yep. Sorry, Bill. I wish you'd been the one to break this, but you weren't.
Hey, but we did it last season with the TPS reports.
No, I know, you're right.
I joined that link with Comic Book Couples Counseling.
Yeah.
Brad and Lisa.
Yeah.
Right? And they were like, whoa, where'd you get that? But
yeah.
So I will continue to celebrate it.
I find Boba Fett suffers from one of the problems we have with a lot of shows of like, it's good, it's fine, it's solid, and it makes it hard to talk about.
Yeah. And it's not Peacemaker.
Well, I don't even know how we can talk about this show. Like, let's just move on to Peacemaker. What the fuck are we watching week in and week out? And I mean that in the most amazing way, because you knew that this show was going to be different. You knew that this show was, some fever dream of James Gunn. And this show is everything that James Gunn, like, it has all his callings, right? It has everything. Just the intro alone is the most James Gunn thing ever.
We never skip that introduction. We watch the full thing every time.
I rewind it sometimes.
Right? So have you read the crazy revelation about that?
No, not yet.
So the choreographer for that, by complete coincidence, I can't remember her name, but she is Alan Tudyk's wife.
Oh, wow.
She was hired not knowing, like, with James Gunn not knowing this fact. But then the pandemic happened. So James Gunn has in his possession Alan Tudyk doing that entire dance because she would get Alan to do the dance to send to James Gunn for him to approve or not approve parts of it.
That is amazing. Wow. I love that.
That was doing the rounds of James Gunn was like, I have it. No one can see it but me.
That's amazing.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that
Well,
intro is just something. You know, this show, I've said it before and I'll say it again. God forbid a show is fun. God forbid a show doesn't take itself too serious, but at the same time is so well thought of and is core to the DC extended universe, whatever the fuck that's going to look like in a couple years. This is just a great, fun show, and I'm having a lot of fun. And I said it to you guys off air or off recording time, whatever you say for podcasts, and that's there's something to be said about John Cena. I think he's one of the funniest motherfuckers around right now, but It's so weird seeing John Cena in this role because, you know, arguably, I think John Cena is the second most popular wrestler turned actor, The Rock being number one. And if you take a look at the eras that they were wrestling in, you have The Rock, who was around during the Attitude Era, the raunchy era, you know, the DX tells you to suck it era, and you have The Rock starring in G-rated movies as the fairy tale godmother or whatever the fuck it was. Now, you have John Cena, who's around during the PG era of WWE, banging chicks, telling people to fuck off, laughing at jokes about lesbians. This show, like just seeing John Cena in this role, in his tighty whities, dancing around, seeing John Cena just make an absolute ass of himself is fabulous to watch each and every week. Exactly. It's just the funniest thing to watch, especially when you know how serious John Cena takes himself. He conducts himself so seriously. Like, he's a funny guy, but he just the way he expresses himself and he presents himself, it's so serious that seeing him in this role just absolutely kills me. And
well, he does do Wipeout. Like, he's the color guy on Wipeout.
This is what I mean. Like, he can act and like look at the movies that he's done, right? Cockblockers and stuff like that. But then if you see him personally in interviews, he's like a robot, which is actually hilarious because before he went to WWE, when he was in their developmental territory, he was known as the Prototype, and he was basically like this robot character who would talk like, you know, the stereotypical robot voice. Funniest shit ever. So yeah, it's just like seeing John Cena in this role is amazing. And again, like, I don't even know how to talk about this show without talking about how much I fucking love it.
Such a good show. I am going to point out that if we ever meet Dave Bautista, you're in trouble.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
He's going to kick your ass.
Yeah.
I'll
I know. Trust me.
But dude has also made an incredibly successful transition.
He has. But I still maintain, and I will maintain to his face until he gets right up to my face, that John Cena is the second most popular wrestler turned actor.
You think he's more popular than Drax the Destroyer?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
I just think that this show, this week I sat down to watch episode 4. Actually, I watched 2, 3, and 4 in one night. And when episode 4 was the big gamble for me, because I'm like, you put out the first 3. If the fourth one's good, it's gonna get interesting. And it's only eight episodes, right?
Yep.
And the minute that title came across, the chode less traveled. I'm like, you're gonna nail it. Like, geez, man, like, come on. And the eagly bit is killing me too. Like, part of that James Gunn theme. Right?
I love
My
it.
favorite part
weird
of the entire show in the intro is at the very end when Eagly actually moves to its mark where it's supposed to be, as if this were a legit choreographed number.
No, it was one of the funniest scenes I've ever seen when Eagly's hugging him when they get reunited in his dad's garage, and his dad's just like, I'm out of here. And
it's such a piece of shit.
Oh, yeah.
I hope they kill him before the end of that show.
Yeah, they need to. White Dragon. Oh, my gosh.
But it's funny because this isn't the first time that Robert Patrick portrays his father. This is actually the second time he's been his dad. In John Cena's movie The Marine, he was his dad.
Interesting.
But yeah, this show is just amazing. And honestly, it's such a simple concept. We need to stop this alien race from taking over the government.
Maybe.
So we think.
Well, it implies
too much.
Well, whatever. I've told people, if you haven't watched it, don't fucking listen. It's not my fault if I spoiled anything. I gave people a warning.
It's secret invasion happening in DC.
That's exactly. Yeah, that's where I was going with that. But yeah, great show. I absolutely love it. Look, anything that DC pumps out, I'm very skeptical about, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
But this show?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, just top notch. Top notch.
It's
Dare
gold.
I
It's
say
the best show on TV.
that I like this more than Book of Boba Fett?
Yep. No, this is way more fun to watch. Like, Book of Boba Fett gets my Star Wars on, and I love it for it. But this is actually makes my Friday night that much more enjoyable, or whenever I actually sit down and watch it Saturday. It's pure fun. It's pure fun. And I don't know anything about any of them. And I still love it. So just to all you guys who aren't DC fans or DCEU fans or whatever, you can just watch a show for what it is as long as you accept superheroes. And it got to the point where I bought the 4K version of Suicide Squad by James Gunn because I'm like, damn it, he needs my money to know that he needs to continue making stuff like this. I don't care what flag it's under. Keep on making good stuff, Mr. Gunn.
And I think that is a perfect way to end this episode, Phil. But before we go, can you tell our listeners how they can get a hold of us?
Sure can. We're really glad that you found us if you're already listening. So thank you for taking the time to listen to our podcast, the It's Canon Podcast Show. And if you're looking to get in contact with us, you can track us down at www.itscanonpodcast.com. You can look us up on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at It's Canon Podcast. You can email us at show@itscanonpodcast.com or just hit Boris up on Facebook. If you'd like to find the podcast or tell your friends where to find it, you can find it anywhere where there's podcasts. Like, honestly, we're on Google Play, Spotify, Apple, everywhere where you get them. And if you like what you hear so far, make sure to leave a rate and review if the platform allows it, and tell your friends to go listen to the It's Canon Podcast.
Thanks, Phil. Thank you to everyone who was listening. Thank you for listening, because it truly does mean a lot. Like I say, this geek therapy is fantastic, but if we can make anyone smile, laugh, have a good day, we know we've done our job. It's the It's Canon Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things geek, all things pop culture, all things nerd. And guys, you know what the best part of it all is?
I'm hearing that it's canonized.
Oh, I actually heard that it was John Cena only got the role as Peacemaker because Dave Bautista turned it down.
He's Tyler. He's Phil. I'm Boris. We need a new host. You can send all applications to boris@itscanonpodcast.com. Chances are I won't even read it. Good night.
Yeah, my position's safe because of Boris's negligence.